นี่จากเพื่อนๆยิงก็จะนั่งรถบัสไปเนาะเพราะว่าสถานที่ที่ว่าอพอลโลนะมันอยู่ไกลมันจะอยู่ในสเปซของเขาเนาะนี่จ้ะวันนี้มาเที่ยวนาซาสนุกมากบอกเลยแนะนำสถานที่ท่องเที่ยวที่แนะนำก็รอรถบัสจ้ะเพื่อนรอรถบัสจ้ะ
Behind the gates, you'll find a community of the most talented, dedicated, motivated workforce anywhere in the world who believe in the unlimited potential of space exploration. This is an active spaceport where new things are happening every day. You never know what you might see, so enjoy your tour.
You are now approaching the Vehicle Assembly Building, or as NASA calls it, the VAB. It is one of the largest buildings in the world by volume, and is the place where NASA completes the final assembly of its rockets before launch. The sheer scale of this building is hard to grasp, even when you're right next to it.
Do you ever feel really small when you think about space? What about when you're standing next to a skyscraper or a really big bridge? Well, I feel about as small as an ant right now. I'm standing inside
The system will quickly pull the capsule away from the rocket below with abort motors that produce 400,000 pounds of thrust, enough to lift 10 buses, just like this bus. The construction of the VAB required 65,000 cubic yards of concrete.
This was considered the largest building in the world by volume. Now these two buildings up here, and of course the third one's off to the right there with a Starliner capsule picture there, but these are now leased to Boeing and all their buildings, and the building in the back, it's got the big picture on it, that is there where they're put together the Starliner capsule. Now, this used to be, these two buildings used to be called the OPF buildings, the Orbiter Processing Facility. Whenever a shuttle lands, they just go in right in through here and on the back. And they be there for 4 months, getting totally refurbished, ready for launch again. But then when the program lasts, that's when they lease them out. Now you can see across there, there's a plan for you, is going to be talking about the crawler transporters. There's 2 of them in the world, and we have both of them right here at the Space Center. Now right over there is one. That one is number 1, and that is just like it came from the factory back in 1966, right out of the box. Nothing's ever been changed to it except for just steady maintenance on it. But the other one that you will see here shortly It's down at Launch Pad 39B, and we'll be getting pretty close to that one. And that one there has been modified, and when you see it, you definitely can tell the difference.
NASA is known for dreaming big, and big dreams require big equipment. I'm standing next to the Crawler Transporter, the largest self-powered land vehicle in the world. It was originally built in 1965 for the Apollo program, and has since been updated to accommodate the space shuttle and now NASA's SLS rocket. Weighing in at 6 million pounds and capable of lifting and hauling 18 million pounds, the Crawler is an engineering marvel, even without a rocket sitting on top of it. This thing has 2,750 horsepower V16 diesel engines that can carry the Crawler up to a top speed of, wait for it, 1 mile per hour while carrying a rocket.
Okay, so I want you to look right up here, and you'll see this thing here. This where there's two of them here. This one here. This is the mobile launch platform, and this is what they used to launch the shuttle from. The Crawler would go right up underneath that while it was in the VAB, pick it up, carry it on out there to the launch pad, either 39A or B, set it on 6 pedestals, and that's where they would launch the shuttle from. This thing right here by itself weighs 9 million pounds.
Then assemble the launch vehicle on top of the mobile launcher, and then we'll come back to the VAB, we'll slide underneath it again, we'll pick it up, we'll take it out to the pad, a trip of about 4.2 miles. It'll take us about 7 hours to get there. But during our trip to the launch pad, we'll roll over a specially prepared crawler weight that consists of anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of special rock. Below that is limestone that's about 4 feet thick and compressed to hold the weight of the crawler and the mobile launcher. And then below that is some hydraulically compacted sand that can support all the weight. And then once we're there, we'll drop it all off. And then a few days later, there'll be a launch. We'll come back, we'll pick the mobile launcher up, and we'll bring it back to the VAB to start the process all over again.
With 50 years and some 3,000 kilometers or 2,000 miles on the clock, NASA expects the crawlers to be in operation for at least another 3 decades. How cool is that? The latest refurbishment is complete, and preparation is well underway for the first SLS mission. The crawler will be doing what it was originally designed to do once again, which is moving rockets.
Okay, and as you look at this crawler way right here, this side is for one track, and the other side over there is for the other track. That's how wide it is.
We're inside the VAB at level 26, 274 feet up. And I can see behind us, right over to the right, the newly added crew access arm attached to this mobile launcher. I want everyone here to meet Cliff Lannon, the mobile launcher project manager. Cliff, can you explain the significance of adding that access arm?
Sure. The crew access arm is one of the last major modifications for the mobile launcher in preparation for SLS and Orion. It basically will be the very last place on Earth that the crew will be before they're in the spacecraft and headed to space. Now, the white room provides a contamination-free environment up next to the spacecraft, and as you suspect, it's white, hence the white room. Great time to head to the Space Center, enjoy all the great exhibits, and come back soon.
Today, this part of the coastline, proudly known as the Space Coast, is the epicenter of the aerospace industry, employing over 100,000 people in Florida. What was once a rural farming community just 60 years ago is now a multi-user spaceport shared by the United States government and...
The safest place to launch a rocket is over the ocean, away from populated areas. There's actually a scientific purpose for launching from here, because we get a speed boost from the Earth's rotation. Imagine yourself riding a carousel. The further you are from the center, the faster you're traveling around the circle. Florida is closer to the Earth's equator, so launching from Florida is like riding closer to the outer edge of the carousel. We harness the extra speed from Earth spinning on its axis to help slingshot rockets into space. When NASA was created, the land previously occupied by the United States Army, Navy, and Air Force became the Launch Operations Center, or LOC. and was put under NASA's supervision. In 1963, President Lyndon B. Johnson called for the renaming of the LOC to honor the late President John F. Kennedy, who had challenged the nation to landing a man on the moon. To this day, it is still referred to as the John F. Kennedy Space Center.
Rocket, and they start all over again. Pretty awesome, huh? All right, now right down here, as soon as we get past this foliage, you're going to see 4 lightning arresters, and that is where SpaceX launches their Falcon 9 rockets. Right there. There it is right there. This is kind of like a secondary launch pad because their main launch pad is over here at 39A, which we're going to get there in a minute. Now right over there, moving down to our left, you'll see another 4 lightning arresters. Now this is where ULA builds their Atlas V rockets, and they are building a modified Atlas V right now where they can accommodate the Starliner capsule that Boeing is building to shuttle our astronauts to and from the International Space Station. And you see that inverted L-shaped thing. That is actually where the astronauts get inside there, and that's an elevator that takes them all the way up to the access arm. They get out and get on the access arm, which takes them right directly into the capsule. And that usually about 2.5 hours ahead of launch schedule. Now we're moving into what we call SpaceX territory. And over there to my left over there, that's launch pad 39A. And of course, that is where SpaceX launches their Falcon 9 and their Heavy Falcon 9 rocket, Heavy Falcon rockets. And you can see the lightning arrestor on the top, and then just below that arm that's across the from left to right, that is actually the access arm for the astronauts. And that actually swings around 180 degrees right to where the Crew Dragon would be, and the astronauts climb out of that access arm, get right into the capsule, getting ready to roll. So that is SpaceX's contribution towards getting our astronauts to and from the International Space Station. Now you see that big building there that says rotisserie there that rolls, and this is how about 35 or 40 employees can go ahead and they can work on it at the same time.
Here we are at the home of the most historic launch pads in the world. Just behind me are launch pads 39A and 39B. These 2 pads launched every single space shuttle mission to assemble and service the International Space Station.
All right, well, you see that little covering we just went by?
SpaceX, the venture started by tech entrepreneur Elon Musk in 2002, signed a 20-year lease for the use of Pad 39A. You may have watched their Falcon Heavy test flight, the one that sent a Tesla Roadster into space. This is where it launched. The Falcon Heavy rocket is currently the most powerful operational rocket in the world by a factor of 2. SpaceX made history in 2012 when it delivered their Dragon spacecraft into orbit to rendezvous with the International Space Station, making SpaceX the first commercial company ever to visit the space station.
You can see that same Dragon capsule back at the visitor complex in the NASA Now exhibit.
Okay, so what I wanted to show you is that the thing laying on there inside of that big building that says SpaceX on it, and they have huge cranes in there that go ahead and set a rocket right on that strong back, and then that strong back will make its way right back up to the launch pad. As it approaches the launch pad, it picks that rocket up just like that, sets it on the launch pad. One of the most historic launch pads in the world, and this is where every astronaut that ever has put their foot on the moon, this is where their journey began, right there. And of course, you know that this is where Elon Musk launched his Tesla from, and it was his personal Tesla that he launched, and it's still up there going around the world somewhere. Somebody, I was within 100 yards of that, right on the launch pad. And they say, you were? Yeah, did you take any pictures? No. We don't want that to happen. We want you to take good, many pictures of that. That's going to be the world famous launch pad right there.
Launchpad 39A has been NASA's rockstar launch pad here at the Kennedy Space Center for the last 50 years. Pretty soon, though, as NASA strives to make its next great leap to return to the moon and onto Mars, the spotlight may shift here to Launchpad 39B. I'm standing in the flame trench of Launchpad 39B.
Down the bottom to safety in case there's any kind of a problem that arises. And I worked on that back in 1969 when they were putting it together, and it was kind of funny because they brought all the dummies up there. They put all the dummies on the cables, and they sent them all down there, and they all smacked into each other and busted up and whatnot, because they do travel 65 miles an hour going down there. And so then they went to go back to the drawing boards. There was nothing wrong with the dummies, it's just that they took the brunt because the brake system was what failed on them, that slows them down once they get down there to the bottom. And then they jump in a tank, and that either they can either get underground, or they can go ahead and get in a tank and let them take them off to safety.
9B has a very bright future as NASA works toward crewed missions back to the moon and onto Mars.
All right, so what you're looking right up here ahead of us, that is the mobile launcher, and it is now being what they call retrofitted to the launch pad after they completed building it for 7 years. Then they brought it out here, and they set it up there, and this is now what they're retrofitting to the launch pad, because when they're completed, they're going to go under there. You can see the crawler is going to be right over here, and they're going to go up. You see that access arm that's going down there with the blue cap on it? Well, that is where the astronauts will actually go down that.
Over 1.5 million liters of water. All of that water is dumped on the mobile launcher and inside the flame trenches in less than 30 seconds during the launch.
30 seconds before launch, they dumped that whole 400,000 gallons right on that mobile launcher. And last week, imagine that. Now, they used to do that to the shuttle. Only it was 35 seconds. Now here you can see this is the crawler transporter, and you can see how huge this thing is. And you can see there's the cubicle. See out here in the front, that's when the tracks. Those tracks have 57 cleats on them, and each one of those cleats is an amazing vehicle.
Amazing.
And when that thing was carrying that mobile launcher, we were driving right down like this here, and when we drove by, we actually drove under the mobile launcher. We had to go underneath it with the bus, and there it was really beneficial to us. Okay, so we're looking over here to my left up here. In just a second I'll get there, but that they have converted into a viewing stand. They come over here on the bus, and they get out, and when they get out of the bus, they have a really nice buffet waiting for them. And then after the buffet, well, then they have activities planned for their time that they're trying to consume while they're waiting for the launch. And then after the launch now, and so they go over there with the bus, and they get off the bus. They have all kinds of things to be looking at while they're waiting for the launch. And also they have a huge cafeteria over there that is really stacked with food whenever they have a launch. And then they have a loudspeaker system over there that's going on with a huge, it's a screen where they have the cameras sitting at the launch wherever they're launching it from. They have a huge screen over there that you can see it right up there next to where the launch is. And then you just look across the river and you can see it coming off the launch pad. So it's pretty cool to see. So if you ever decided you'd like to come up and see a live launch, well, you can check that out, and be pretty easy to get a live launch, because I have a bird that's committing suicide up here. He does up here this is a 4-story building with a black glass on it. This is the launch control center. This is actually the heartbeat of this whole place out here, because they usually have 100 engineers and 100 technicians in there with the launch director and their assistant whenever there is a launch, and they'll go ahead and launch it. But once it clears the tower, they hand it off to Mission Control in Houston, and then Mission Control in Houston has it for the duration. Now, does anybody know why they have Mission Control in Houston? It's a political thing. And the reason why it's political is, guess who was the president at the time of they build the mission. And that's why it's over there. Okay, ABC, CBS, NBC, NASA Television, and the Florida Today newspaper. They got it covered.
And give the final go or no go. I'm inside the LCC with Charlie Blackwell Thompson, the first female launch director. Charlie, can you tell us, what does a launch director do?
Well, the launch director's job, I think, is a part of bringing a new capability to America's space program with the SLS rocket and the Orion spacecraft, and sending them on this mission known as EM1 is pretty incredible.
Right. And what is your role leading up to that big launch?
So leading up to launch, it's not all about that launch day. There's a lot of work that goes into getting the ground systems, the flight systems, and the team ready for that day. And so there's work on preparing the team, doing training, certification, ensuring that they're ready to go in those final minutes and final seconds of launch countdown when you have to do critical commanding, critical verifications. It's also about ensuring that our ground systems are ready, all of the capabilities, testing them and ensuring that they're ready for launch day as well. And
5:35 years ago, fly the Atlantic. Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
When President John F. Kennedy, the thriving private space industry at Kennedy Space Center today are the living legacy of their story. As we arrive at the Apollo Saturn V Center to learn more about that historic era, get ready to step back into a time when NASA had everything to prove to a nation focused on one goal: to be the first country to land a person